Rob, let's go to the AFC. And huge game, Buffalo and Cincinnati, of course, meeting in the divisional round. Buffalo 14-3, Cincinnati 13-4. Two of the best teams in the league, two of the best quarterbacks in the league. I want to ask you two questions. First, who do you have winning? And secondly, which quarterback do you trust more, Joe Burrow or Josh Allen?
I hate that Cincinnati's missing 3 offensive linemen. I mean, it's just 3
starters. I thought Williams might be back, but he's not. So
I can sit here and try to ignore it like it doesn't matter. I saw Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl with a depleted offensive line, Chris, and he was held to 0 points. That. That's how big the offensive line
0
is.
touchdowns,
am I right?
2 picks he had.
Yeah, Chris.
Look, Rob, I was talking with an ex-NBA coach last night, and he was telling me, he was ranting about how, man, they are overpaying these quarterbacks, which I've said before, Rob. I think the balance, it's out of balance. I think the quarterbacks obviously should get paid a ton, but I don't think they should be that far out in front of everybody else. And we were talking about why, because you just said, and it's just not just linemen, anybody. You need receivers, you need linemen, you need running backs. The quarterback, as important and great as he may be, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be the highest paid guy on the team, but he can't do anything without some offensive linemen that can block, Chris, or some running backs or some receivers.
There's no doubt about it. We saw this year Brady struggle. We saw Aaron Rodgers struggle.
Run game,
right?
No
receivers. Let's just be fair. We can sit here and act like, it doesn't matter. They should just be good no matter what. It ain't true. No. If you don't have pieces,
because even if you're great, you better have. And I know Joe Burrow was great last year without a great offensive line.
But that's what ultimately cost them the Super Bowl.
Right. And remember, he got hurt his rookie year.
Right, but I'm saying they were leading at the half, if you remember, and then the Rams got to him, Chris, and came back, and he couldn't get anything going. They couldn't stop Aaron Donald and that crew. That was the Super Bowl. It was won there.
Right.
And on the offensive line. And that's what the only thing that scares me. I'm all into Joe Burrow. I just am. And it's not a knock on Josh Allen, who I think is a tremendous player. Chris started the season, if you remember, what they scored, 72 points their first 2 games. Beat the Rams in L.A.
Beat Tennessee 41-7.
Yeah.
And Tennessee was healthy.
Ridiculous.
Be good.
Right. And, the turnovers and Josh Allen, they struggled in the game, but so did Cincinnati.
Oh, right, both did.
They both did, but I like Joe Burrow better. And what he's been able to do. It
sounds like you're leaning Buffalo, but you like Joe Burrow better.
I want, if I didn't know about the 3 offensive linemen, it would be no question in my mind, I would take Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. I'm concerned about the offensive line. I'm just straight up. And if I had to put money on it, I might have to bet Buffalo. I haven't made my pick. I should say,
Cincinnati.
When I made my pick, I picked Cincinnati.
Negative -5.5.
So I'll probably do that, Chris. But Buffalo has a way better chance to win because of the offensive line.
Well, if they have Von Miller, Rob, if he were healthy, I'd really be thinking, okay, Buffalo's definitely going to take this. I got Buffalo anyway. They were my preseason pick for the Super Bowl, so I'm sticking with them. It's obviously 2 very good teams, 2 great quarterbacks, so it's going to be a good game. Neither looked good last week, and you can argue that if either had played or if both had played the number 1 quarterbacks from the other team, they both would have lost. I mean, you can certainly argue that Lamar Jackson with Baltimore may have beaten Cincinnati, and Tua with Miami may have beaten Buffalo. But as it is, as you said, I think that offensive line is a big problem. I mean, heck, your starters for a reason. All right. And they had some really good starters that they're missing, Alex Kappa and Lyle Collins, who's been out. But, I think that's going to be a factor. Look, if you bring up the word trust, then there's no doubt that Burrow is the more accurate passer. I'd say he's the smarter quarterback. And so I think that Trust, yeah, he doesn't tend to make as many mistakes as Josh Allen. But I would say Josh Allen's ceiling, at least like in an individual game. I don't mean, Burrow, who knows? If he starts winning a bunch of Super Bowls, he will be, I don't mean ceiling like whose legacy could be greater.
Right.
I mean who can actually have like the most dynamic game. Both of them can have a dynamic game, obviously. But whose dynamic game is higher? Whose A+ game is higher? I think most people would agree is Josh Allen, not only because of the arm, but because of the legs. Like, I mean, his A+ game is rushing for close to, if not 100 yards, a touchdown or two, and throwing for a few touchdowns too. So I like the dynamite factor that Josh Allen brings, but certainly, Burrow is the guy that protects the ball better. But I'm gonna say this, and really, Josh Allen's fumbles have been an issue. I mean, he threw 14 interceptions, but that's just 2 more than Burrow. I think 2 more than Patrick Mahomes as well. But Rob, interestingly, here's the thing, and I know we saw Allen throw 2 interceptions and lose a fumble that was returned for a touchdown last week. But overall in the playoffs, Rob, he's actually been more sure-handed than Burrow. In 7 playoff games, Allen has 17 touchdowns, which is very good.
Right.
But only 3 interceptions, Rob, 2 of which came last week. Burrow in 5 playoff games has just 6 touchdowns passing and 2 interceptions. So I don't know, again, Allen turned it over a lot last week. So maybe those numbers will start to reflect more what he does in the regular season, and he'll have some turnovers this weekend. But trust Burrow, but I like Allen. I'm happy with him as the team that I picked. And right now, I feel I like him better, but they're both very good quarterbacks.
Yeah,
elite. They're elite.
They are, and I don't know. I think it's Joe Burrow, Chris. Why people might have that, even though you just gave the stats, is because he won that big game in Cincinnati on the road when they were down at the half. Do you know what I mean? Like I do believe people remember that. Like that,
oh, yeah.
like those.
I think most people would answer Burrow on this question.
And they came back, Chris, if you remember, against Tennessee, the week before.
Yep.
Like
one on a late field goal.
Right. But those are the things that people remember. Is like you don't panic if you fall behind and Joe Burrow's your guy. He's steady and he can bring you back and he can lead a team to whatever you need, a field goal or whatever. And I think that's why people look at it. Even though, and you just said it, Josh Allen's numbers are gaudy. I mean, you just said it.
He's got like the third best passer rating in playoff history.
Wow.
At this point. Yeah. Behind Pat Mahomes, and guess who, Rob? Bart Starr.
No, Bart Starr.
Number 2.
Well, but for a lot of
we knew he was great.
Right,
but usually guys back then don't have the high passer.
But he was, and a lot of young people, they don't know who Bart Starr is, Chris.
Right.
I've never even heard of him.
We didn't even see him play.
You didn't see him play.
I
didn't see him play, but I knew who he was.
We remembered him, right?
Yeah, you remember that name because he was legendary, even though we never saw him. And that's why you need to do some research and look at some of these guys. When you hear some of these names and you can't understand why they're in the mix with some of the young guys, it's because for a reason.
Absolutely. Rob, I was asked on First Things First today if I expect Allen to play a clean game. And I answered honestly, no. I expect him to make a pick, to throw a pick. Rob, in 14 of his 17 games this year, he had a turnover. 10 of them, it was an interception, and the other 4, it was a fumble. And so he's probably going to make a turnover. And I think Buffalo, look, you can live with 1 turnover. What you don't want are multiple turnovers, and you don't want any of the turnovers to be like a pick 6 or a fumble return for a touchdown. Or even, Rob, like one that deep in your own territory, those are the ones they have to avoid. I'm not trying to gloss over a turnover period.
No, I know what you mean.
He's going to make one. I mean, it just is what it is. But you can live with that if he plays clean otherwise and, plays well. I mean, a lot of these games when he has a turnover, he obviously plays well. So that I think they can live with one, but it just can't be the kind that kills you.
Yeah, and he's been prone for it. So it'll be interesting to see if he can have a clean game. I'm with you. I doubt it. I don't know why he has, he does run with the ball, but he fumbles a lot, Chris, as well. So,
I mean, you see him running, Rob, and you see how he's holding that ball out, like with one hand. I mean, it is just there for the taking. And Rob, and when we were coming up, I don't think players did this. But now, and this is a good thing, they are coached to go for that ball. You're going for the tackle and the ball.
Yeah, but a lot of times
you're not just going for the tackle.
That's why the tackling's not great.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
I agree with you on that.
That's why the tackling's not as great, because in the old days it was about wrapping people up.
Right.
And now it's about
tackling them.
Punch the ball out or whatever. So you're punching at it, Chris, and he's still moving.
And he's running over you.
Right.
or dragging you for a few yards. So yeah, I agree with you on that. But he's got to protect that ball. And I know he said at his press conference yesterday that there's a fine line between being aggressive and reckless. I hope he's learned that. But, you are who you are. So he's going to be out there. He's going to be trying to make plays. And a good chance he probably, commits a turnover trying to make one of those big plays.